This is the MLB This Week podcast, and this show is in memory of Jim, the sports dog Mulry, who passed away yesterday. And we're doing this show for him. This is for you, Jimmy. Hello and welcome aboard to this week's MLB This Week. It's the MLB This Week podcast, talking all about baseball, the world of baseball, the top stories that we follow each week for our listeners out there. And good evening, Mr. Gary Mack.
Hello, Mr. Rich Baxter, and how are you doing? I know we are both doing this today with a bit of a heavy heart. As you said in the opening there, you lost a very good friend, and I think we've all lost a good friend of baseball. Jimmy, the sports dog Mulry, passed away after just a couple of bad battles with illness, and hope he's looking down and he's got his thumbs up and he's happy that we're doing the show, and we just wanted to dedicate it to him.
Absolutely, yeah. He was a real trooper in the sense that he has been ill over the past few years. Podcasting has kept him very happy over the past few years. I can tell you that he's done shows right from his hospital bed, if you can believe that. And a lot of people never knew that, even with the Phillies Talk podcast that we've done. And, of course, he's been on Mets Musings a couple times with me talking to Phillies. With you on your show, Gary. He's joined us here once or twice on MLB This Week. So, yeah, this show is dedicated to Jim, his memory, and his dedication to podcasting was unbelievable because, you know, in this day of computers and cell phones, Facebook and Google, he had none of that, believe it or not, he never did. So everything he had was up in his brain, and he was like almost like a walking encyclopedia sometimes with baseball memories and different stats that he kept, research that he did. So yeah, Jimmy, I know you're probably listening to this show, so this is for you, and we're going to dedicate this to you, and we're going to miss you.
We certainly will. You know, Rich, I remember having a conversation with him one time on one of the times he was on with us. And Jimmy couldn't wait for the season to start. He didn't care what it was. He just wanted to watch baseball. He used to walk across the street, or he lived close to a high school, and he'd walk over there and watch the high school games. And I swear he'd probably stop and watch a stickball game if it still played it in the streets. That's the kind of guy that he loved baseball so much, and really a bad loss. And my personal condolences go out to his family as well as to you, his co-host and partner there for a number of years. So. Jimmy, as Rich said, this one's for you.
Yep, and we're going to do I'm going to mix up a nice show for the next Phillies Talk podcast. If anybody listens to MLB This Week, you might want to tune in to the next Phillies Talk. I'm going to dedicate that one to Jimmy as well. I'm going to do some behind-the-scenes audio that's never been heard before, some funny things that go on before the show starts and sometimes after it ends. But it's been a long road. We've been podcasting for 10 years. Started in 2006. I started the show with Jimmy in mind. I remember talking to him about it. I told him he had a radio voice. How would he like to do a podcast? And that's sort of what kicked it off. It was sort of in the beginning of podcasting. And it was just a good time to get into the field. So once again, Jimmy, this one's for you. And the best to his family as well, and the listeners out there that really look forward to listening to him as well.
And Rich, get it kicked off. We had a big brawl last week in the world of baseball, and one thing you never see was a knockout punch like Odor throw against Jose Bautista.
Yeah, absolutely right. Before you knew it, Odor landed a right hand right across Bautista's chin, knocked his helmet and glasses off, and it was sort of one of those things that a photographer did catch, as if you're watching the show on the video version here on YouTube, on MLB This Week, our YouTube channel, you could see that photo that was taken, and yeah, it was a wicked right hand that caught Bautista, but I'm wondering who was the injured party in all this besides Bautista. In the play prior to that, they hit him with a fastball in the ribs. I know he tossed the bat against the Texas Rangers last year up in Toronto. They said it was paybacks, but watched a couple programs, and they said, baseball generally pays back a deed like that, flipping a bat, making light of a win or something like that. They sort of police themselves, but the shows that I was listening to was very confounded on why they waited so long to get back at Bautista. They almost waited to the end of the game there, and that was really a retribution against him.
Well, I think the punch really came, I think, due to the slide into second. He did slide late. It was kind of a dirty slide, and I'm surprised. Well, maybe they did. I don't even know whether they called the play because of the slide. But if you watch the slide on video, it really was a dirty play. It was a late slide, and who knows? There is bad blood between those teams, especially with him.
Yeah.
So, and he did take a step, and I'm trying to remember the video now. Did he push Odor first?
I don't think he did. I think Odor came at him first, pushed him. He might have tried to push him back, and then the right hand came across before you could say boo. It wasn't like they squared off or anything. Odor just landed that right hand before anybody knew it was happening. I don't even think Bautista thought he was going to swing at him like that. But Odor ended up getting an 8-game suspension. I saw the slide a number of times. I've sort of been out of following baseball on a daily basis in the last couple of days, but I didn't think it was that bad of a slide. If you're going to block second base, you're going to get slid into. He was right in front of the bag. It wasn't called a dirty slide by many people, but I've seen that slide many a times. If a second baseman or a shortstop doesn't jump, they're blocking the bag. So I don't know what – that slide could have been much worse, in my opinion, and I think it took it easy on him with that slide.
It just looked it looked very late to me. And that's, I thought it was kind of a cheap slide in that regards, that he looked like he did it very late to take him out, and he get ticked off, and but they had some battle royal then, and I mean they were all coming out, and man, then the guys going at it all over the field. It looked like a hockey fight for a while there, but jerseys being pulled over their heads.
Yeah, the benches cleared instantly. There was a ton of melee. Of course, we can't show you this on our video version of this. We don't have the rights to show that. Would love to recreate that and talk about it a little bit, but I'm sure everybody that listens to this show has probably seen that play. If you didn't, you can always Google it on YouTube. You can play it from a couple different angles. But yeah, that was certainly maybe not that fun, quote unquote, that Bryce Harper, bringing the fun back into baseball, had in mind. But certainly fevers got high there that evening. So hopefully it'll all calm down now and they get back to playing baseball. But, yep, not too much good blood between those two teams.
Well, Rich, there's a lot of people that like the MMA, so maybe baseball gets some new fans out of it after all.
Yeah, and I think 8 games was sort of on the lower end of the scale. I would say maybe 10 should have been the magic number there. Let baseball players know that it's not going to be tolerated. 8 games is 8 games, but 10 to me sounds more of a punishment than 8.
Yeah, you wonder sometimes where they get these numbers from.
Yeah.
what made it 8 games, and then then Chapman gets 30 games for shooting a gun off in his garage and threatening to smack his girlfriend or whatever, and Jose Reyes gets 52 games. It's just, you kind of wonder where they come up with these things, but like you said, they're both paying for it. He got 8, and Batista got 1. And I believe there was a couple other guys got some suspensions, but
yeah, and
we'll see what happens the next time they play.
And I don't really know how Bautista ended up with 1. I guess it's guilt by being there. Maybe he was the assaulted one, but yeah, baseball handed him a game just for good measure, and now hopefully it'll all subside, get back to playing baseball. I wonder if it affected the Blue Jays. They've sunk to the bottom of the AL East. They're currently 6.5 games back, 21-24. Not very much on the bubbly side there in Toronto, and I kind of thought they'd do much better this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought they would win the division. I believe I picked them. Let me see my notes here.
I believe I picked them the last couple years to do well, and it's just one of those things. Maybe it's led to a little slide with them.
Yeah, we both picked them, and I don't know. It's close enough. Well, 6.5 games, but they're still close enough to make a run. It's so early in the season yet. We're only about a quarter of the way, and so they got plenty of time. And in that division, anything could happen. So
that's for sure. And we'll round out the rest of the American League East there. Of course, the Orioles on top, clinging to a 1-game lead now. Boston Red Sox with some 6-4 in their last 10, with some wins, 25-17. They're pushing up the ranks there in AL East. Over in the AL Central, it's still the Chicago White Sox with a handy lead by 1 game there over the Cleveland Indians. 25-18 are the White Sox. It's still sort of a Chicago type of series looming, it seems like, Gary.
And but look, if you look below that, Rich, Kansas City's starting to get it together a little bit. So that's going to be an interesting race because Cleveland's got that good pitching and a terrific manager there. And can the White Sox hold off the Indians and the Royals? It's going to be a good race. And even Detroit's not out of it at 4.5 out. My pick, Minnesota, looks – they might be out of the race already at 13.5 out. That's going to be a tough one. But, yeah, it'll be interesting. And taking a look at the West, Rich, Seattle is looking strong.
Yeah, they are 25-17. And somebody we spoke about on last week's show landed a job on the LA Angels, Tim Lincecum. The Freak, as they used to call him in San Francisco. I don't know if his name will change now, but picked up with the LA Angels. Maybe that's the little spark that the Angels kind of need. They've moved up the ranks a little bit. They're in 3rd place, 6 games off the lead now, 19-23.
Yeah, it could be. You never know. I mean, if he can find some of the old Lincecum magic that he had out in San Francisco. In this case, a 2-time Cy Young Award winner. So he could be a big boost for the Angels.
Yes, he could. And we're going to round out the National League for you a little bit later in the show on MLB This Week. I'd like to invite our listeners to stop by our Patreon page. We're listener supported, so we're still waiting on our first patron to come by over at Patreon. That's patreon.com/MLB This Week. You can go on the site, select a level that you're comfortable with donating to the show, maybe $1 or $2 a month. If we get a few listeners out there to do that, we can maybe improve the show a little bit for you. I know Gary's been going to some live events over the last week, some book signings and things like that. If that's the kind of thing that you'd like to hear us do, we need some support for it. So we're listener supported. Please drop by our Patreon page, and you can find that at our website. It's MLBThisWeek.com. There's a link there for our Patreon link up. You can just go right on there if you have a PayPal account and link right up to us. So we would appreciate that. And the more we do for the show, we get some funds in, we can do a lot more. So we're looking forward to doing that.
Yeah, certainly are. So get out there and donate.
Yeah, we've got a Chicago Cub podcast we're familiar with and friendly with called Ivy Envy. They've been doing their show for 8 years. They're at nearly $1,000 a month goal. They're about $100 shy of that. So every month they're getting about $900, and with that, they go to different live events and things like that. So these are the things that can be done with some funding. So apparently a lot of companies aren't into sponsoring podcasts yet, so we're appealing to our listeners now. So, this isn't going to make us rich by any means, but we're going to be able to put investment back into the show and offer better quality things for our listeners. So if you're out there and you're listening, want to give us some support, we'd appreciate it. We're also available for emails and voicemails. You can go to our website at MLB This Week. We have a link there where you can talk right to us, leave us a video, audio message, if you will. And if you'd like to email us, just go to talk@MLBThisWeek.com. Send us your comments, your suggestions, your thoughts about the show, those kind of things, and we'd love to get them on the air as well. So MLB This Week, we're here for you. And Gary, you have the next story up here about some possible upcoming changes to the world of baseball.
Well, Rich, these are big. We've been talking about the umpiring and how bad it's been. Well, a new strike zone could be on baseball's horizon, and the old-fashioned intentional walk could be a thing of the past after both were agreed on by the competition committee at Major League Baseball owners' meetings this week. The potentially dramatic changes could be in effect by next season. The committee agreed on a motion to raise the lower part of the strike zone to the top of the hitter's knees. And this is all from different sources. The current rule stipulates the zone begins at the hollow beneath the kneecap, whatever the heck that is. But the change is a reaction to a trend by umpires to call strikes on an increasing number of pitches below the knees. If the change is agreed to by the competition committee, and it does take effect, it would raise the lower part of the strike zone to the top of the hitter's knees. The change in the intentional walk rule would end the traditional practice of requiring the pitcher to lob 4 balls outside the strike zone. Instead, a team could signify it wants to issue an intentional walk, and the hitter would be immediately sent to first base. The two changes can't go into effect unless they are approved by baseball's playing rules committee, and sources said the changes would also be presented to the MLB Players Association as part of negotiations for a new labor agreement. However, the Playing Rules Committee isn't required to have the union sign off on the changes. So they could, in effect, take next season, use it, whether or not the union agrees with them. And of course, this falls in line with Rob Manfred's whole edict, or whatever you want to call it, about pace of play and pace of action. And the end of the traditional intentional walk would eliminate dead time. However, the adjustment in the strike zone, would produce more balls in play. Hopefully, you never know. It could produce more strikeouts with some of the way these guys swing. But they think it could, cause more action at a time when nearly 30% of hitters in the average game either walk or strike out. So, we'll see what happens if it goes into effect. I don't know if it's going to cut down on the strikeouts, because you still got to hit the ball. It's just going to make you swing more, maybe. And I guess the whole idea that if you swing more, you'll have to make contact, and hopefully that will take care of it. But it's an interesting rule. I don't know how I feel about the intentional walk. I think that's taking another element out of the game. That if you get a guy that's wild and he throws that pitch wild, and we've seen it happen, it could change the face of a game to just simply say, "Oh, we want an intentional walk." I don't know. What's your thoughts on that, Rich?
Well, I sort of like the strike zone the way it is now. I guess the hollow of the knee would sort of be maybe 2 inches below the knee. It's rarely called a strike. Most of the games I've ever seen have the strike zone at about the knee level, which is what they want to make it. But I don't see that these changes are going to really affect the game in a positive way as much as it would maybe a negative way. You're going to maybe induce more walks, things like that. And with the rule about the other rule that they want to change, the intentional walk rule, if you're a fan of baseball from the 70s, you might remember some plays that were like fake intentional walks. The catcher would walk out, signal that there's an intentional ball being called for, and then go back down, and they'll throw a strike right down the middle on the guy while he's waiting for the intentional pitch. So, it doesn't get used much, and it hasn't been used much that way in the last 20 to 30 years. But in the past, it's been sort of a play, so to speak, in the game of baseball. So I don't know. I'm not a fan of that. Throw 4 balls. If you throw 4 balls, then you get to walk. Don't make a signal and have this changed with this. That's really stupid to save 2 minutes.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, who was it that the pitch came close and hit a home run? Was it Johnny Bench or Carl Yastrzemski or something? You're doing away with that opportunity. And as you say, you could a wild pitch or over the catcher's head or something. It just kind of kills the game.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that they're going to do all of these things to quicken the pace of the game, and in the interim, they're going to actually kill the game. And yet we still have the whole review thing take so long. So that's where they should be looking about picking up the pace of the game. Check that review stuff and get that going. And, we've talked about it in the past, that why can't they be wired in, that this technology, they can have little earplugs in their ear with New York telling them what to do.
Or take it away from New York, have traveling umpires, if you will, video review type people right at the stadium. Why have stop the game, put on these goofy headsets, talking to Mars, somebody from Mars or something. Have the guys right at the game. This is a multi-billion-dollar game. Why did they have this all set up in one or two central locations? It could be right at the stadium, and it should be right at the stadium. You'd cut the time back to a third or less because the umps don't really have to walk back, put on those goofy headsets.
Yeah.
It's something that probably 10 years from now, people will be watching baseball and saying, look, they used to go back and put on headsets and wait for New York to make a decision. Maybe there's two plays backed up. Who knows? But, yeah, that's where you're going to save some time. Time is not an issue. I don't know who made this whole thing about baseball takes too long. It's always been kind of a longer sport than basketball or football because it's not a timed sport. So that was the beauty, and that is the beauty of baseball. You can go to a 2-hour game and walk away and say, wow, I kind of feel like I didn't get my money's worth. Or you can go to a 5-hour game that's extra innings and say, wow, that was one of the best investments of my time I've ever made.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think I made this connection once before with golf. You pay all this money to go out to golf, and they rush you through the freaking 18 holes, and I feel gypped sometimes. I mean, I paid this money. I want to enjoy the nice sunny day if it's a sunny day, the fresh air. And same thing at the ballpark. I want to enjoy it. I don't want to get to my seat. The next thing I know, I'm leaving my seat to get out of the ballpark. I'm with you. I mean, all right, I don't like necessarily a 3-4 hour game. If it's an extra inning game and it's a close game and everything, all right, I don't mind that. But, but then you have the option if you want to take off and leave. That's fine too. I mean, it's all up to you. But to tinker with it, and the whole thing is they say the youth aren't involved. Look, at a kid's level, there's still going to be a right fielder that's not going to hit the ball that much, and that's just a part of the game.
Yeah, and I think they're kind of overreacting because the more they say that younger kids aren't into the game, the more you see games on television, and there's nothing but the younger people there because they have the disposable income to spend on these overly priced tickets.
Yeah.
It's the older folks and the real younger people that haven't attained the age of 18 yet that can't afford baseball anymore. You got the people in the middle, 20 to 25, maybe up to 30. They have the disposable income. So, I don't know who come up with this time thing, but I've never viewed it as a problem ever.
I agree with you, Rich. It's just one of those things that got started somewhere, and
it's taken a life of its own.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, speaking about homes to play baseball in, the Texas Rangers have announced in the last couple of days that they'll be seeking to be playing in a new $1 billion retractable roof stadium by the year 2021, and they would remain in Arlington until at least 2054 under plans revealed Friday by the team and the city. The proposed master agreement for a public and private partnership calls for a 50-50 split of the estimated cost of the stadium and related infrastructure. So here we've got, if you're watching our video version of the show, I've got an artist rendering of that stadium. It looks almost like Cowboy Stadium there, Gary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it certainly does. And do they really need another stadium? I mean, how old is Globe Life Park? It can't be more than 20 years old or so.
Yeah, the whole idea behind that is they were thinking about putting a roof on Globe Life Park because of the humidity and heat that builds up down there in Texas. And we've seen that in the Florida leagues, especially Miami, Tampa. They almost have to have some sort of climate control going on, but the the price for that roof would be way too expensive. So they proposed, instead of going with that on an older stadium, quote unquote, it's not that old, but it would still be probably maybe up to half the cost to put a roof on that stadium. And I guess they figure that, their investment would probably be better off with a brand new building, brand new facility with a roof, in mind from the bricks and mortar with that building. And of course, all the accoutrements that go along with it, a high-rise luxury hotel, 100,000 square foot restaurant and retail and bar space, and 35,000 feet of convention space. So it's quite a public project, but the Rangers have the public funds maybe to do that, because they're asking for $500 million from Arlington and the state of Texas to throw this all together for them. So interesting how these ball clubs come up with these ideas, and they're funded by public money,
Mm-hmm.
a large majority of it. There was an article a week or two ago about Atlanta with their stadium, their brand new stadium they're building. The same thing. They approached a county up there, and that county went out and sold bonds and went on a limb. Couple $100 million worth of bonds they had to sell for that new stadium that's going up in Atlanta. So that's part of the lure of getting a major league team. Do you want to pay for it?
Mm-hmm. And I think it's fascinating in a way that it seems to be the new trend seems to be these community type of things where they're building. It's not just a stadium anymore. Now, as you said, they want to build a convention center and a luxury hotel and retail stores and restaurants. It's almost like they're rebuilding a community around this stadium now. And it's just similar to Atlanta, what they're doing out there, and building a community as well around the stadium. And I wonder, with all these hotels going to be that close to the stadium, are teams going to actually stay in those hotels now? And boy, you won't have to charter buses back and forth anymore just to the airports, because they can just walk across the street and go into them. But Chicago's kind of doing the same thing. If you think about it, Wrigley Field, they're renovating that. They wouldn't leave, but around that area, they're renovating it in such a way so they can add retail space and restaurants and whatnot. So I guess that's the big trend now here in New York. A little bit different with Citi Field. It's only 6 years old, but what they're trying to do is across the street, and they've been there for years, were really terrible auto body shops, but they were like slummy. I mean, they were really bad looking. Good rainstorm, and the street was flooded, and they were flooded, and just really, a lot of them. Truth be known, there's probably some chop shops back there, and the city trying to clean out these people, and they want to build the same idea. They want to build housing, and they want to build restaurant and retail space, and it's more of an urban area than looks like Atlanta or Texas is going to be. But they're kind of doing the same kind of trend that way here. And I don't know how it is. It's in Philly at Citizens Bank, but I would imagine the whole thing with the restaurants is what people are trying to do.
Yeah, they did it on a smaller scale around Philadelphia. They have the Comcast Sportsnet sponsoring most of it, few upscale bars and restaurants, things like that. But that was sort of secondary after the new stadiums. It sort of sprung up because of these new stadiums, adding all these things. And all of a sudden, there's additional revenue for the teams. As you said, around Citi Field, I remember behind Shea Stadium, it was that same junkyard type setup.
Yep, those are the ones.
And they're still there. I'm amazed that they're still there. I haven't been up there in a couple years, but I remember trying to drive through one of those streets behind all that, and I'm telling you, it was like World War II. There was holes 5 feet deep in the roads.
Yep, exactly. And they're still there, some of them, and they are getting some of those businesses out, but it's a long process. They fight in court to stay there, and but I think the Wilpons actually they have their construction company. I think has a chance to build over in that area. They won the bid or whatever it was they had to go through from the city. So it seems to be a trend. I don't know, this every 20 years now we're gonna have new stadiums. I can't keep up with it.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing how years ago it was sort of the opposite? Here's a stadium, come and watch baseball. Go home, do what you want to do. Now they want to have you come down there, even if you don't have a ticket. Come on down. We got restaurants, we got bars. It's almost like the casino mentality. We want to get you in here.
Well, maybe that's it. They figure you come in for a ball game and you'll stay for a meal or something. But look at the ballparks with the amenities they have now, and the restaurants and the different type of foods, and it's a lot different going to a ball game now than it was 15 years ago even. Remember going to Shea Stadium, you'd get a hot dog and be happy. That was the, top cuisine.
Yeah.
And, then they brought in some extra foods, but, it wasn't built for that kind of things. Now they have it. There's all kinds of stuff. When I went a couple of weeks ago to the game, it's pricey. I had a hamburger at Keats Grill, excellent, but it was $12.50. Now it was very good. The beef was unbelievable. Everything was great. Would I pay $12.50 again? I might pay $12.50 for something, but I'm going to try something else. And maybe that's what they want anyway, because they're still getting you. But the burger was good. It was the Mex burger, MEX, at Keats Grill, Keith Hernandez Grill in City Field. It was very good, but the $12.50 was a lot of money, I thought. But you know what? I was there. I was having a good time, and I enjoyed it. But it's true that you were saying earlier about the prices. They have to do something that's going to get more people in than faster games, I think.
Yeah.
Look at the Yankees, Rich. They're not drawing at all. Of course, they're horrible. Though they've won 3 or 4 in a row now, so they got in a little life. But they're not getting those people in, and part of the problem was they built that stadium, and they cost so much to get people in there. The tickets are so high that it's really incredible. And I don't know how you go backwards, how you cut the cost on these things, but I'm afraid they're going to make a crisis where they're building all these stadiums and all these luxurious seats, and boy, you watch on TV and those are the seats that are empty.
Exactly.
So, the people are getting deals on the other seats, so they're going to StubHub and sitting in the seats, and you see these seats that are empty, and I don't know.
That's the divide between, the baseball salary or the, $500,000 a year salary to the average Joe that's, supporting a family and working 50 hours a week, that sort of thing. There's a disconnect in there somewhere. And your entertainment value dollar is another thing. If you're going to go to one baseball game and spend $500 and take your family of 4, or do you want to go to the movies, to the park, and maybe to an amusement park for less money and have 3 or 4 outings instead of plopping all that money down for one baseball game? That's what people are probably, deciding. So not that hard to decide between that with a family. Sometimes you have to make the good times last a little longer.
Yeah. And you can take them to, if you're lucky enough to live near a minor league game, take them to that. I mean, I'm fortunate. I'm within reasonable driving distance of 3 minor league ball clubs, all in the same league, as a matter of fact. Two major league baseball teams, and an independent league out here in Long Island. We have the Atlantic League, which is very successful. And we have the Long Island Ducks out here, and there's some very successful teams in that league, and then that's a question too, because boy, do I want to pay $50 a ticket to go to Citi Field, or pay $16 a ticket to go see the Cyclones, or whatever it is out in the Ducks, the $12-15 are about the same as the Cyclones. So there's a lot of choices, and like you say, if you got a family, you may opt to go to the minor league game and stuff, because it's a lot closer to the action. The kids get more of, I don't know if you call it attention, but they can be more attentive because it's so close, and it's just a different atmosphere.
Yes, it is. So we'll see how that goes with these new stadiums and all. One team that probably needs a bigger stadium is the Washington Nationals. They've held down first place in the National League East now for a while, battling with your Mets, Gary, back and forth. The Mets had a dramatic win tonight as we're doing the podcast here on May 21st, 2016. So they gained the game up on the Nationals, but a nice little back and forth there, which has been predicted all season long.
Yeah, and throw in the mix maybe the Phillies, if they can hold it together. Haven't hitting a little skid here now. They lost 2 to the Atlanta Braves, but tomorrow's another day, and we'll see. But Eastern NL East going to be a tough race the whole way through. Miami's not half bad either, so could be 3 or 4 teams fighting the whole season. And in the Central, Rich, I don't know. The Cubbies keep rolling.
Yeah, the Cubbies don't look like they're going to get caught out there. 29-11 so far, 15-5 on the road. Fear the Cubs when they come into town, folks. I'll be going out to see the Cubs play the Phillies this year. My wife just surprised me with tickets, so I'll be seeing that wrecking crew make it stop in Philadelphia. And as you said, Gary, Phillies are playing better. They're up there right now, 24-19. Maybe they can contest the Cubs a little bit when they come to town.
Yeah, and the big question mark is St. Louis this year. They seem to be 3 games above 500, but they also seem to be spinning the wheels at times. So Milwaukee's playing a lot better than everybody thought, but they're not going to make anybody. They're not going to get into the race. They're 12.5 out already, but and Cincinnati's bringing up the rear in the Central, and out west, Rich, I think we're going to have another one of them dogfights.
Yeah, it's going back and forth already. A few teams in the mix now. The Giants, Dodgers, and Rockies all of a sudden revitalized. The Rockies playing some amazing ball of late, and they have a rookie down there. I believe on the Rockies it's really setting the world on fire. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting out there in the West as we go into June here. Kind of hard to believe that we're already almost up to Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, certainly is, Rich. And just to go back a second about the West, I'm a little disappointed in Arizona. I thought we would see more out of them. Made a couple of good trades, signed Greinke, who's struggling a little bit out there. But I'm a little surprised that they're where they're at. I thought they really had a chance to make a good run, and but again, it's still early. And look, there's only one team. San Francisco's the only team over 500 right now in that division. LA is at 21-22, and Colorado's at 20-21. So Arizona at 20-25 are still in it, 5.5 games out. Even San Diego at 6.5 out. Even though their numbers don't look that good, they're still in it. But it's going to be the Dodgers and the Giants, I think, in a dogfight.
Yeah, and I think this is when the baseball season actually starts to heat up really well. We're out of April. That's just a memory. We're 3.5 weeks into May. From Memorial Day to around July 4th, and the trade deadline is one of the most exciting times of baseball. So the next 6 to 7 weeks are going to be a great time to be a baseball fan as we start talking hot stove action. Some players may be moving to other teams, of course, and that's what makes this game great. It just has an ebb and flow to it that really is appealing.
Yeah, you're right on that one.
Well, somebody that's been appealing to New York fans has been an old guy, believe it or not, one of the oldest pitchers in the major leagues, probably the oldest, I would have to guess. But you have a story on that, Gar.
Well, it's the gift that keeps on giving, Bartolo Colon, and we're not going to talk about his extramarital affair, 2 kids out of wedlock with a waitress 7 and 8 years old, but let's not talk about that, but let's talk about Colon. You know, he hit that big home run. He became the oldest guy to hit a home run, his first home run in Major League Baseball. And a company called Clark Toys this week posted an offering from Forever Collectibles, and it's a commemorative Bartolo Colon home run bobblehead that also has a bobble stomach. In less than 24 hours, Clark Toys has sold more than 500 of them. Most of the bobbleheads we sell are limited to 360 pieces, and they take months to sell, said Travis Payan, managing partner of Clark Toys. When the buzz on this item started this morning, we sold 130 minutes. Payan said he can't remember any athletic bobblehead that was ordered faster than Colon's. In 2008, we sold 600 Barack Obama bobbleheads on the night he was elected, Payan recalled. The Colon bobbleheads are limited to 942 pieces and cost $39.99. A mock-up of the bobblehead featured a headline that said Colon was the oldest pitcher in MLB history to hit a home run, when he was actually the oldest player to hit his first career home run. Payan said fans who buy the bobblehead will get an accurate headline. Colon's home run on May 7th, if you remember, Rich, has led to several merchandising opportunities. Topps Cards sold thousands of cards to commemorate the event, and Colon recently forged a deal with a limited T-shirt site represented to sell Barbino shirts, a reference to Babe Ruth's Bambino nickname. So this thing has really, Rich, has taken on a life of its own, and if Bartolo loses in court, he may need the extra cash to pay for the child support for those unwed kids. But pretty amazing that he's got the record now with Topps for the most cards sold on a commemorative card, and now this bobblehead taking off like wildfire, and all because a guy with a gut hit a home run for the first time at the age of 42.
Amazing story there. A guy that just keeps on going, like the Energizer Bunny. I know a few years ago, Jamie Moyer pitched into his 40s for the Phillies. Seemed like he would never retire, and then all of a sudden one year he decided that was it. But yeah, that's a great story out of New York. I didn't hear the out of wedlock children's story, so they've kept that nicely wrapped up around the New York area. But I guess those kind of things happen from time to time.
Well, it became a big story the other night. In fact, he pitched and did not look like the same pitcher, and I think he was probably distracted by it. It came out, a big story in the New York Post the other day, and how it happened was really, it was they had it anonymous, and both parties had agreed to it. The judge had agreed to it. He made the mistake of saying that he was going to represent himself, so his name went on the court record as the attorney, and I guess that blew the whole lid off the whole thing. Somebody saw that, and these reporters and stuff, they scout everything. They're looking for everything, and I guess that record surfaced somewhere, and one thing led to the other, and it blew the whole lid off the story. So he's allegedly had this affair and has 2 kids, 8 and 7 years old, that allegedly never paid any child support for. And again, supposedly his wife knew about it and everything, and he's still with his wife. So, it's not the kind of thing you would hope wouldn't come out at all, and you, at the least, you would hope it wouldn't come out in the season. But it's out there now, and we'll see what happens. He'll have a start in a couple of days. We'll see how and if it affects him at all again. Did not look good. Did not have control. Looked distracted on the mound. There's a look that Bartolo has, and he just looked like a different ball player.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's quite a story, and hopefully he can focus on what he's doing, his day-to-day obligations with the team. Well, moving on with towards the end of the podcast here, a great mansion was put up for sale just recently, and I just stumbled upon this story. If you're watching our YouTube feed, you might want to check out a little picture there. For $9.95 million. Now, you got to take a look at that picture to see what you're getting. You're almost getting like a little hacienda there. You have a multi-level house with nice water around it. There's a tennis court in the background. There's a little baseball field included, a baseball diamond included on this property, as well as a swimming pool. And it's none other than, I was surprised to hear whose mansion this is. Coco Crisp for the Oakland A's has put his mansion up for sale here. Double gate there as you go in. And that's quite a buy for $9.95 million, isn't it, Gary?
Wow, it looks like it. Looks like a lot of property. And this is in California?
Yeah, it's right in the Coachella Valley, they call it. Mountains in the background, beautiful trees all over the property. Just a really wonderful looking place. If you had $10 million out there, I'm sure this thing's not going to last very long on the market.
I'm going to check my bank account, Rich, and my credit line. Maybe, man, you could go halves with that with a person and still probably not see him for a week.
Or tents, 10 people, go in and 10 people with it. It's quite a place. So it's described as a playground paradise for both kids and adults, says listing agent Raquel Roston of the Realtor Group there. Quote, it was a full-time home for Coco, but it's also a great vacation spot. If you want a 5-star desert oasis, this is it. And those aren't just tag words. That's what it literally is. And if you take a look, you can go over to sfgate.com. It's a San Francisco magazine online, a newspaper. You can find all of this information here. It's got all the amenities, an elevator in the house, of course, a game room, a home theater with a popcorn machine, saltwater fish tank, and a gym. So it's got everything. You wouldn't probably want to leave this too much. This estate here was purchased originally for $7 million 3 years ago. And Coco Crisp and his wife Maria have been raising their 4 children there. So I guess he's getting to the end of his career. He's 36 years old now, is Coco Crisp. So, hey, the nice things that a baseball salary can buy.
Man, I'll tell you, I'm looking at the website now, and holy cow! I mean, it's pretty impressive. But wow,
Yeah.
that swimming pool's nice. Yeah, and it's funny that a lot of these guys are selling their houses lately. Tulowitzki sold his mansion in Denver, and John Schmaltz sold his in Atlanta, and wow, they even got a wine room. Rich, did you see that in the pictures?
Yeah, it's just amazing. It goes on and on and on.
Yeah, the home theater. I'd like to have a home theater, Rich. How about you?
That would be nice, just have a separate room with a home theater in it. Yeah, that would be my speed.
And an elevator in the house. Oh my God, the swimming. I'm sorry, folks.
It's okay to dream.
I'm gonna run out and play lotto tonight, Rich. So
things that money can buy.
It's fun.
Well, some other things that money can buy, a little more closer to our hearts and our stomachs, of course, leads us into our next story, but it's maybe something that you don't want.
Well, yeah, Rich. I mean, if you thought the Atlanta Braves had reached rock bottom and had trouble this season, earlier this week, they just fired their manager, Freddie Gonzalez, and he found out about it by checking some air reservations for a road trip and found out that, he didn't have reservations anymore. But it got worse for them. Eric Ibar, the shortstop, who was having a miserable start to the season, got a chicken bone stuck in his throat at lunch. The Atlanta Braves shortstop was removed from the starting lineup for Thursday night's game against the Pirates after a chicken bone got stuck in his throat. Manager Brian Snitker said Ibar arrived at PNC Park on Thursday afternoon in discomfort and was taken to a doctor. He was sedated and had the bone removed. According to the newspaper, one Braves player said Ibar had some blood coming from his mouth and was unable to lift his shoulder because the bone had caused so much discomfort. It definitely has been a rough season for Ibar and the Braves, and wow, this did not help at all. And my question is, Rich, what the heck why did you go to the ballpark? If you got blood coming from your mouth, you're obviously in a lot of discomfort. Why didn't you just go right to the doctor?
Yeah, go right to the hospital for that matter. And maybe he didn't realize what the severity of it was. Hard to say, but yeah, some of these players will do some strange things, and that certainly ranks up there with the top of them. Of course, Freddie Gonzalez getting let go from the Braves, kind of overdue in my opinion. I've never been a huge fan of him. Didn't like him too much with the Marlins. He was sort of set up for failure with the Braves, though, so we'll have to see. They're going to go into that new stadium brand new, probably with a new team, new manager, and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, they kind of cleaned house. They got rid of the bench coach as well. They kept, I think, the first base coach and definitely the pitching coach. They're very high on Roger McDowell there. Yeah, I mean, they keep saying about Freddie Gonzalez, but I agree. He didn't do much with Miami. He hasn't really done anything here. And he had a couple of good teams here. I mean, a couple of years ago, they had a decent enough team with Freeman, and they had some good young pitching, and they just kind of flopped. And like you said, Rich, it kind of was overdue that he got fired, but I guess the real news was how it happened, that he found out about it, with an email or whatever, and because he was checking his itinerary and must have wrote his boss and said, "Hey, I don't have a reservation," and don't worry,
you're fired. You're not coming on that trip. That's why your name's not on the list.
On the packet.
The things that baseball clubs do sometimes.
So, I mean, and then for this to happen, I mean, Eric Ibar, stick to boneless chicken from now on. All right.
That's true. So we're going to lead this show out tonight. This edition of MLB This Week, we do have a streak going, Gary. I just caught on to this story. A hitting streak, Jackie Bradley Jr. With a 26-game hitting streak there for the Boston Red Sox. So we've got a streak going on.
Yeah, and if people think that doesn't sound like a lot, that's a ton. That's a ton, trying to get a hit in 26 games in a row. And, I still don't think anybody will break DiMaggio's record, 56 games. I mean, there's so many variables that can happen. It's just amazing. He's got one thing in his favor, though. He does have speed. So you always figured a speed guy would break the record because they can hit a ground ball and beat it out sometimes. But nobody's done it yet, Rich. And but good luck to him. 26 games. That's amazing. Yep,
and we'll report on it next week as well. Well, we thank you all for listening to this edition of MLB This Week. Again, we're dedicating to Jim Sports Dog Mulry. I gave him that title, the Sports Dog. So, Jimmy, this one's for you.